Hello, Tag, and welcome to this tutorial on the new GCSE, and today we're going to be looking at the 90 words task. This is question 5 on the foundation paper and question 2 on the higher paper. So it is a crossover question which appears on both papers and is marked in the same way for both tiers. So we're going to look first of all at the mark scheme, and then we will look at an example and I shall give you a model answer. So the mark scheme, first of all, this is marked out of 15 in total. You've got two separate areas. So first of all, you are marked for AO2, which is essentially the coverage of the bullet points. So you will be given a task which is 3 bullet points, and if your answer answers all 3 bullet points clearly and you develop your ideas, then you can access this top band here, 9 to 10 out of 10 for AO2. If there are some instances where there is perhaps a lapse in clarity, so that means that what you've written is not 100% clear, then you can still access this 7 to 8 band. And we see again this word developed coming back. So the development is really important in your 90 words task. This obviously crops up also in the 5 to 6 band, and therefore it's something that we are aiming towards, that development of ideas. The AO3 that you are marked for is out of 5. So this is essentially about your language use. So the variety is important. So we are aiming not to repeat vocabulary. And if we're aiming for top marks, we should be looking at some complexity to our language as well. Complex structures, including tenses there as well. So the time frames I mentioned, 3 time frames, should be used, but when you see the task, you will realise that that is essential if you're going to cover all 3 bullet points anyway. There is some margin for error, so even in this top band, there may still be errors, but they are usually minor errors here in the top band, 5 for AO3. There may be some major errors, but these are when you're attempting the more complex structures. So it is still worth trying the more challenging language, even if we are to make an error in that. Obviously, the ideal is that we're writing nice and accurately. Okay, so that's the mark scheme. The task itself looks like this. First thing to point out is that the task does have this either or concept. So I've just brought one for you today, but you will have on a real paper, you would have 2 90 words questions to choose from. You only write one. So for this one, we have a short introduction. You're writing to your German friend about your family and friends, there's a typo there, your family and friends, and of course you are aiming to write approximately 90 words. You should cover all the bullet points. So our bullet points are what your family is like, something you have done recently with friends, and your plans for a family in the future. As you can see, the 3 bullet points are of course in English, and they really prompt you to use those 3 different time frames. As far as we're aware, they wouldn't necessarily always come in this order, but usually you will see the present tense bullet point first, then maybe a past or future, and the other remaining tense in that 3rd bullet point. 15 marks is the total. So if we take this as our starting point and we'll have a go at a model answer. So the first bullet point, what your family is like. We begin just nice and simply with a sentence describing, of course, my family. So remembering in German that when I write a noun, I should have a capital letter. So meine Familie ist nicht sehr groß. My family is not very big. Ich habe eine Schwester. I have a sister. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of complexity here by using a subordinating conjunction. So die Megan heißt. And my verb goes to the end of that sentence. Then I can use a nice relational verb. Ich komme gut aus is a good idiomatic expression. Obviously a separable verb and an example of complexity. So ich komme gut mit meinen Eltern. So not only am I using this complex structure, but I'm showing here that I'm using the dative case for the sentence after mit. So mit meinen Eltern, the phrase after mit. And remembering my aus at the end there. Denn sie sind freundlich. Okay. Looking back over the first paragraph, I've of course covered that first bullet point now, what your family is like. If I read back through it and perhaps as an editing process, maybe go back and think, well, I could, instead of den, I could use weil here, which is slightly more complex because it causes my verb to go to the end of the sentence. It's a kicker. And as long as I remember to put my verb at the end of the sentence, I've introduced a bit more complexity there by using this different connective. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the second bullet point, something you have done recently with friends. So I'm going to start with the German word for recently, neulich. I'm remembering that after starting with a time phrase, I need my verb in the second idea now. And I'm going to be using gegangen, so I need my form of sein. Bin ich mit meinen Freunden, the dative case again there, mit meinen Freunden ins Kino gegangen. My irregular past participle that takes the sign in the perfect tense. I'm also going to use a slightly more complex structure here. Instead of saying wir haben einen Film gesehen, I'm going to use and zu. So einen Horrorfilm, say. Horrorfilm zu sehen. So by using and zu, I've brought the complexity to my writing as well. Meine Freunde, let's introduce an opinion phrase here, somebody else's opinion, so bringing a bit of variety. Meine Freunde fanden, the imperfect tense. I've used the perfect tense once, so I'm going to use the imperfect tense now. So fanden den Film, there's the accusative, that's what they found, the film. Den Film fantastisch. Aber ich hatte Angst. So the imperfect tense again in the ich form. Ich hatte, I had. Angst is fear, so I was afraid. Okay, so to extend this a little bit further so that I can write a bit more for this second bullet point, I'm going to introduce something that we did after the film. So nach dem Film haben wir in einem Restaurant gegessen. Back to my perfect tense again, so nice variety, lots of examples of the past tense. Let's finish with an opinion phrase. Meiner Meinung nach. After meiner Meinung nach, I must use the verb second. So war das sehr lecker. Was very delicious. Okay, so that's my second bullet point. I can go on to the third and final bullet point now. This is my future tense bullet point. So I'm going to start with my future tense expression, in der Zukunft, in the future. I can use möchte ich here, but I'm going to stick with the basic future. Werde ich eine Familie haben? My infinitive at the end of the clause. And I'm going to give a reason. Here's my development of my idea. Denn ich liebe Kinder. Okay, because I love children. And for variety, I'll use ich möchte this time. Ich möchte auch in einer Kirche heiraten. Like also to get married in a church. Aber, here's my development of the idea, nur wenn, only if, ich meinen idealen Partner finde. And there we have it. I've covered bullet point 1, relatively brief, but there is some complexity in my writing. Bullet point 2, lots of nice examples of the past tense, both the perfect tense with sein, the perfect tense with haben, and the imperfect tense with fanden and hatte, and of course war. So lots of lovely examples of the past tense in my second paragraph. In the third paragraph, it's a little bit shorter than the second, but that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be equal coverage across the 3 bullet points. Here's my future tense, with werden, ich werde haben, and with ich möchte. This is essentially the conditional tense as well. So, plenty of variety. I don't think I've repeated any adjectives unnecessarily, and I've brought some complexity to my writing. So that's as straightforward as it needs to be. Good luck, viel Glück. Just an updated version of Model Answer to show you where the examples of complexity, different time phrases, and developed ideas are.